you to the work session for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, September 27, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bullen,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell, Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano, Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Cutchin, here, Councilmember Farmer, Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone. Before we get to information, just one thing I want to mention under mayor announcements and comments, and I put this in my mayor's report Friday. I got a call this past week from a new resident who had received the Gazette, and we were talking about that, and it got into the fact that he didn't know which ward he was in. And during that conversation, and as you know, we have other residents who've had this problem in the past. And so it occurred to me that one easy solution to that, or at least would ameliorate the problem, would be to include on the address block for the Gazette, a separate line, ideally at the bottom, that would say Ward 1 or Ward 6 or whatever. And I talked with our city administrator. He said it was an easy solution, no cost. And so if there's no objection, I think it might be a good idea if we do that going forward. And then one question I have for, I guess it would be Mr. Vinich or whomever's in charge of the mailings relating to things that are coming up before the city, where we give site-specific notices, the cards that everyone receives that lets them know about things that are occurring that might affect them or their property. Do we have a similar indication as to ward in those notices? And if not, I'm assuming we could easily add it to those as well. So I guess that's my question.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I'll respond. We always include as part of the advertisement the ward where the particular project, request, whatever the circumstance may be. And oftentimes that mailing just goes to the immediate ward or properties in the same ward. However, in certain locations where we expand the radius, we certainly probably would need to add different wards, particularly in some of the more compact areas. And we can do that if you'd like.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point relative to different wards being affected by the same thing. So and the whole idea would be so that they can, it would facilitate them contacting all of you with any questions or comments they may have. Councilmember Bartoni.
Thank you. And I don't have any objection to what you're doing. I'm just
You have your
thinking one
mic
other thing. No objection, just one other thing. At what point do we mail out like that new resident packet? And what I was just thinking is maybe included in that packet could just be the business card for the 2 council members from that ward.
Mr. Bartoni, the new resident packet is mailed once a month. Okay, as soon as we get the information from Ameren for the new connections and so forth, and we can certainly do that. So I will make a note of it and I will mention it. Ruth Waters, our receptionist, is the individual who puts those packets together after I get that list from Ameren. So I will speak with her tomorrow and we'll put in those cards for that.
Okay. And if she needs a stack from each one of us, she can just like let us know. And we
Well,
can bring
with
them
as many
here.
of those letters as we send out, I would suggest that they're going to need to order those separately. And so not to encumber all of you with it, just let them order the cards and put them in. And if there's no objection, I would like mine included in that because someone may want to contact me about something. And so
Yeah, that's
got all
fine.
3 of us.
Yeah.
So any objection to now what we've got is including the ward notation on the Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, it's not an objection, but on the website where it lists each council person, can we put the subdivisions that they represent in there? Because residents often think about the subdivision that they live in, but not necessarily the ward that they live in. And that might help clarify it for them.
let's get an answer to that at the next council meeting, because I think there may need to be some research as to
Okay.
how much information we actually have in the database that can be applied to this. And the other issue is, even if we can do that, and I'm not speaking for or against, I'm just thinking this through, even if we can do that, this is with the mailing label itself. So it's, oh, I see. So we'll get an answer at the next work session for that. Okay, so, and thank you for bringing that up. So what we have at this point with the mailing labels will be, one, we include ward notation on a new line with the mailing of each Gazette. Two, we will have ward notation with the mailing on the address block, similarly with the mailing for notices of things going on in the city of a nature that affect them. In other words, the notices we're required to send. And three, with the new resident packets, we will include the cards for all applicable elected officials for that resident. Everyone good with that? Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving next to information, we have 14 items. Before we go to our action item, does anyone have anything they want to mention or have a question about under information? Councilmember Dodwell.
Okay, we've got two new activities that are going on in Ward 4, and I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of them. The Public Safety Board is supporting both of these. One is the proposed turn restrictions at West Glen Farms Drive. Joe and I were even talking about this, and I don't know that we could do it real easily, but perhaps having a conversation with the owners of said road, which is Truman Road, right where it hits West Glen Farms. We want to negate doing left-hand turns out of that road because it creates accidents, et cetera. And so this is a great first step, but long-term, it would be wonderful if we could just block off that road so nobody can make that kind of turn, especially since there's a light in Ellisville that they could go the other direction and get out a little bit safer and not create so many problems at that particular intersection. So I just ask for your support when this comes up on the, Joe and I both would ask for your support when this comes up on the regular agenda. And then there's also another Keep Kids Alive, Drive 25 enforcement along Thunderhead Canyon. And those of you who do not live in that somewhat more compacted subdivision, we have a lot of teenage kids that love to drive fast up and down that road. We've got a lot of adults that are running late for work and like to drive fast up and down that road. And so we would ask for your support for putting up that Drive Alive, or Keep Kids Alive Drive 25 enforcement zone, so that we can hopefully mitigate some of the concerns that our residents in that area have, and also not require that the police have to sit there 7x24 measuring everything. So we would ask for your support on that as well.
Thank you. And just for everyone's information, my plan, Councilmember Dodwell as well, since we have one item under action that I don't think will take too long, was to go back to the 3 public works items, the 2 you mentioned, plus the resolutions relating to the MoDOT cost share that are on the council's main meeting agenda. And we can go ahead and have some preliminary discussion if anyone wants to about those here. So we're going to come back to that. And anyone can talk about it now if you want, but my thought would be get the action item done, and then we can go back and handle that, just because we never know how long the action item is going to take. But I think it'll be short. Okay, everyone good with that? And thank you for your comments, and we'll revisit this momentarily. Okay, anything else under information before we go to the action item? I'm sorry, Councilmember Edens.
Yes, thank you. Let me lower my hand here. So pretty sure I know the answer to the question, but I didn't want to make an assumption. So this is about Bluffview, and it's for Director Vunich. But, you know, for example, on page 7 of the renderings, so I'm assuming that what is next to that sort of red, brown, potentially textured concrete, that looks green on my document is actually submit, so that those parking spaces have a place to back out and it's not actually grass. Does it just look green?
Yes, we won't trap people in the parking spaces and force them to potentially get stuck on grass and mud if it's wet out. So yes.
I figured as much. So just to recap for anybody watching at home. So what I'm seeing on kind of page 3 is it looks like a U shape before it's cut off. So that whole strip then is part of a street with a pedestrian shared use path up the center.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool
And
beans.
very shortly, we'll have some engineered drawings that'll be much easier to review and understand than the renderings. The renderings are kind of out of context. So at the committee meeting, we were able to kind of put them in context. So yes, you're correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Clark.
Yes, one quick question on 4.B.1, the internet. Mr. Brown, is there a way to get a picture or some kind of a drawing, a rendering of the Bays ET equipment shelter that's going to be built over there on Old Wild Horse Creek Road for the neighbors, just so that they know what's going on?
City Administrator says that may be a question for Mr. Vintage. Would you like to comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I will contact Chris Bay and have him send over either a photograph of one he already has installed, and if he does not, something from the manufacturer's catalog.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under information before we go to the action item? All right, seeing none, moving next then to the action item from the Planning and Parks Committee. The preliminary concepts for Hard Court Area and Community Park. Mr. Vintage, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Mr. Newberry for share screen. This past Tuesday, the Planning and Parks Committee took up a matter relating to a hard court play area. Specifically, the desire is to create a versatile set of courts that can accommodate a range of activities, ranging from pickleball to basketball. Initially, the committee was hoping to have the location of the proposed 3 hard court play areas on the southern end of Community Park. That particular location that had been identified had some grade issues associated with it, along with some ancillary problems relating to restrooms, parking, and just general ease of access. Ultimately, the committee was presented these 2 options identified as A and A1. The benefit to one to the other is they're very comparable, but at the end of the discussion, the committee unanimously supported the option A1. That particular option does not require the removal of any mature trees. It respects the 50-foot setback from top of bank of Bonham Creek, and given the grade in that area, works very well relative to limited disturbance. Additionally, the committee noted that there is 12 existing parking spaces in close proximity, and then just a short distance to the south is the pavilion area with restrooms. The committee is presenting this particular design and concept to City Council tonight for comments or questions. And if acceptable, the committee is seeking a motion, second, and voice vote to proceed forward with the detailed engineering. Thank you.
Do we have a price?
The engineering will get us a little closer to that price. But what we've told the committee, Mr. Mayor, is before we get too far along, we'll have a price because we're in that budget process, or we're starting the budget process here very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fleischer.
I'd like to make the motion to proceed forward with A1.
We have a motion to proceed with concept A1, second by Councilmember Nyan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Dodwell.
Joe, I just wanted to double check. I'm fine with A1, but is the location of the hard courts below grade from where the edge of the creek is. I want to make sure we don't have water running off of those courts directly into the creek, because then we'll end up with erosion. I'm sure planning and zoning looked at that, but just want to understand.
Well, it's a very good question, Ms. Dodwell, in that Bonham Creek has been identified as one of our watersheds that has some stresses, not as much as Cox Creek. And part of the rationale is the location was to protect that 50-foot area from top of bank, which gives us a solid buffer to manage stormwater. We'll do stormwater management as part of this, so as we can get I guarantee as much as possible with Mother Nature, we don't create another problem in the watershed. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Councilmember Edens.
Yep, looked at this and I just want to make sure that this is exactly where I understand it's supposed to be, and I apologize for my confusion. I did read the document. Maybe I should have paid more attention to maps and Girl Scouts, chuckle, chuckle. But anyway, this is the open field, correct? That we planted trees in and was kind of supposed to be that open mixed use space, and it's going to be on one section of that, correct?
Ms. Edens, the intent is to place the hardcourt play area as far south in the Great Meadow as possible. And then, as you can see, kind of blended away with the existing vegetation. A1 provides that no vegetation will be required to be removed. So we still retain probably 5+ acres of the Great Meadow area undisturbed.
Okay, I'm just having a whole lot of trouble visualizing how that blends in.
Well,
But I'm glad that you're trying to, kind of keep it towards the corner so that it does that, because it does have a lovely feel the way it is, and I would hate to change the aesthetic too much. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
and I think
sorry.
the committee I think the committee had that same concern, and that's why we first looked to the south end of the park, but the topography and the engineering solutions to that topography would have really, I think, affected the cost of the project.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I support A1. I went over there and looked at the site, and it's quite low. The lowest spot in that field is due south of where we're planning to put the courts. And so I asked a police officer who happened to be sitting there if he knew if there was ever any standing water in that area, and he didn't know, but he suggested calling Gailey, which is a great idea, to ask them if they're slopping around in there after rainstorms, and we can kind of get a better handle on what the drainage situation is there. But I think to build it, we're going to have to do some cutting and filling, and it'll raise the southern half of it another couple of feet above grade. And so maybe that space directly south is a good spot for, say, a rain garden type of approach, and enhance the aesthetics of the area as we're putting in a hard surface court. I'm not any more thrilled than Ms. Edens to give up the Great Meadow, because I loved the idea. We have plenty of trees and not many meadows, but you can't have everything. And we now have Pertner Park, which is several acres of meadows that we're hopefully going to restore for flowers and actual meadows, because there's a lot of folks playing Frisbee with their dogs and stuff. Particularly, I've seen them out there when the pavilion is rented, enjoying that space. And so maybe we could just, commit to keeping it mowed and put in a rain garden with some flowers, and concentrate on Pertner Park in a couple of years. And we've got the best of both worlds. So I just want to mention that I think it's going to work out really well, and I'm excited to support it.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? You had your hand up, Councilmember Fleischer.
My only question was, when getting the design plans back, will we be looking into the potential for lights for that, or just the hardcourt surfaces themselves?
Mr. Benich.
That is a discussion for the committee, not necessarily the Department of Planning and Parks, and certainly ultimately City Council. But I can have the park designer get information on lighting, just in terms of their height the necessary wattage to do an adequate job of lighting the courts, and then some cost information so you can have as much as possible if you want to make a decision.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be a separate issue. So the motion on the floor now relates only to the location and moving forward. Councilmember Dodwell.
I just want to make one comment on lights. We better make darn sure that they go straight down or just only over the courts, because otherwise we're going to have neighbors complaining about having that kind of lighted space during the nighttime there, while residents aren't totally close.
We're gonna cross that bridge when we
Okay.
get all yep, okay. That's all right. Okay, so the motion on the floor relates only to the preference between the two locations. We have a motion, a second. No objection to it, so I'm assuming this will pass, but just for formality, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You were in favor, Councilmember Edens? Okay, perfect. And any abstentions? Seeing none, okay, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, so that takes care of our action item. With no objection, let's go back to three public works items. The first two, as you heard earlier, Councilmember, these are all three on the main meeting agenda. So if there is any discussion or questions, we can clear some of that out here. Councilmember Dodwell, as you know, moments ago, asked for your support for the Keep Kids Alive drive and the proposed turn restrictions. And those relate to, right here, Bill 2639 and 2640, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
I believe that is correct. Yes, 2639 is for the Thunderhead Canyon enforcement area.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so is there any, Councilor Dodwell, I know you mentioned earlier your request for support and you eloquently discussed that. Is there any other council member who has any questions for Councilmember Dodwell or for Rick Brown, or any comments on either of these before we go to our third public works item that's on the main meeting agenda? Councilmember Bertolino.
Yeah, are we still on 2640 about the West Glen Farm?
Yes, we are.
All right, I noticed in the recommendations that we've had to submit this recommendation to MoDOT and also to Ellisville. Is it premature for us to be passing a bill or moving it forward until we get some assurance from those two entities that this will go through?
Mr. Brown, would you mind responding to that, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I guess we have had some feedback from Ellisville, and so far it's been of a favorable note, not opposing the changes that are recommended here. So at this point, the feeling is Ellisville is fine with this. And I think the main thing we need to decide if it's the right approach for the city of Wildwood, then I think we need to move forward and at least tell MoDOT that we want to enact these restrictions. We're going to need to put the ordinance to MoDOT for them to move forward with the changes that are necessary, such as the signage and also the potentially putting the delineator posts along the center line of West Glen Farms.
City Administrator Cross.
Thank you. I feel compelled to just enter a note of caution as it relates to the city of Ellisville. Mr. Brown and I have spoken. We have gotten some preliminary comments from the city administrator that he did not see an issue with it. But I do not believe, Mr. Brown can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that this has been presented to the Ellisville City Council or anything like that. That was just kind of a somewhat of an informal comment from the city administrator. So I think we need to pursue that a little bit further with the city of Ellisville to get written approval from them that they would agree with this change.
Well, the other thing too is, and the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but as a practical matter, this has to start somewhere. And if the council passes this, our city council, all of you pass this, and something would unfortunately happen relative to either MoDOT or Ellisville, this could always be revisited and reconsidered and handled subsequent to that. So it's not like it's written in stone per se that we don't have flexibility to handle that, but we hope it doesn't happen. So just FYI. Correct, City Attorney Young?
That is correct, Mayor.
Thank you. So any other comments or questions? And thank you, Councilmember Bertolino, for bringing that up because we will need to get buy-in from those other parties. Anything else from anyone on Bill 2639 or 2640 before we go to a discussion of the MoDOT item, cost share application? Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, should we pass the E1 for Keep Kids Alive Drive? Is there some way we can actually enforce that? Because I know in other sections of the city, when we have Keep Kids Alive, the extra fee has not been collected or even enforced. Don't know if it's possible to do that, but can we look into that and make sure we are actually enforcing that and adding that extra fine because it is Kids Drive Alive 25?
We'll let the city, without objection, the city attorney respond to that. Mr. Young?
What's being proposed in the legislation is a minimum fine requirement in a special enforcement zone, which did not exist previously. I believe it may have existed at one point, and prior to my coming on, a city attorney was removed. So we're reinstituting a minimum fine requirement. So yes, it will be enforced and will have to be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else on these two items? Okay, then next and last, going to the two resolutions that we have on the main meeting agenda, resolution 2021-22 and 2021-23. These relate to the item on the work session agenda under item 4F, the MoDOT cost share applications. Rick, do you want to say anything relative to these in addition to the information the council's received?
Mr. Mayor, I will mention just briefly, if that's okay, I wanted to point out relative to these applications, we did submit them previously in the year with East West Gateway. They were unsuccessful. So now we're proposing to start again with a different program. This is MoDOT's cost share program. It's not as lucrative. This is a 50-50 program. 50% is the minimum that we can get from MoDOT on the program. And I wanted to point out, I did bump up slightly the costs for both projects, primarily to be sure that we had enough funds, or we're asking enough funds through the application process. What it's telling me that the earliest monies would be available would be 2024 for both applications, assuming they were successful.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for trying a different route. Any questions for Rick or any comments on either of these two resolutions? All right. Okay, so that takes us to adjournment. And we have about 2 minutes before the council meeting starts at 7. So if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn this work session, we will take a brief recess and come back as best we can right at 7. Councilmember Galani making a motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Hopper.
Mayor
Non-debatable.
Boland,
I'm sorry.
I had a comment under miscellaneous that we just skipped that
Sure,
section.
Councilmember Edens, go ahead.
Okay, yes, just very, very quickly. I was wondering if the Public Works Department or City Administrator could send a letter to the county regarding some near misses on Clayton Road going west between Valley and Strucker, where Clayton Road narrows down into one lane. So years ago, the county used to have striped turn arrows for right lane only, where it narrows, right turn only. When they repaved the road, for whatever reason, they didn't repaint those turn arrows, and we've got a lot of people trying to pass on the right. And I do want to say thank you to our city police who were out there with their radar gun last week. But they can't be out there all the time, and there's a lot of horn honking and a lot of brakes. So at some point, the county has acknowledged that the turn arrows needed to be there for a reason. I'm sure it was an oversight that it wasn't repainted, but I would really appreciate it if the city could send a letter requesting that they be repainted.
So Councilmember Edens, unfortunately, we're going to have to add that to the next work session agenda because for sunshine law purposes, we can't take action like that without notice to the public. So if there's no objection, we can put it on the next work session agenda and have that occur if the council wants to do that. Are you good with that?
Yeah, and that's even though it's not our city taking action, it's just a request to the county to take action. That is
I'm
on the agenda.
afraid. I'm
Okay.
afraid. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if there's no objection, we'll put that on the agenda for the next work session. Ms. Eldridge, if you'd please make note of that. Okay, and my apology for missing you there. So we have a motion to adjourn on the floor that's been seconded. It's non-debatable motion, a non-debatable motion. So we'll vote immediately. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the work session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're now a little past 7, so if we could please take a quick break and we'll convene the main meeting of the council ASAP. Thanks. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, September 27, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nian,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And again, welcome to everyone that's with us here in the community or the council chambers, and also those of you who may be joining by Zoom. We're glad to have you. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. For everyone who is comfortably able, if you'd please stand with me for that, I would appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. And we have some speaker cards, I see. Okay, so moving next to public participation. I'm just going to mention a few words about that. This is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to, oh, I'm sorry, we have approval of minutes. Thank you. Approval of minutes is next. This is from our September 13, 2021 work session and regular meeting. Any comments on the minutes? All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented, made by Councilmember McCutcheon, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Any discussion on the motion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, next, public participation. This is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak must complete a speaker card and present it to the clerk who is to the left of the podium, or raise your hand feature, use the raise hand feature on Zoom. When your name is called, please state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when that time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may also post responses on the City Council page of our website. Finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
The first speaker card is Ed Marshall wishing to comment about Bill number 2637.
Well, good evening. I'm pretty sure many of us, when we first got on the council, had no idea we even got paid. And I think the bigger issue is your job as being elected is to represent the residents in your ward. And unfortunately, over the years, you have a great council now showing up, but I know of 4 or 5 times, in at least my experience of 20 years, where a council member decided after they were elected, they weren't coming back. And unless the laws have changed, this council has no authority of removing somebody for not coming to meetings. And unfortunately, I guess fortunately for everyone here, you haven't had so many of the issues where you fill the council chamber up with people who are upset because they only have 1 vote for their ward because their council member has decided they really don't want to represent the ward. Now, it's never about the money, have them come. And we've had several that you would beg them to resign, and they said, no, I'm not going to resign. And the residents would put pressure on them and they wouldn't. So we've had some over a year that sat in that office. Now, they were not paid. So at least our only outcome to the residents back then was to be able to say, we can't remove an elected official. Next election period, somebody hopefully will run, or if nobody runs, then the mayor can appoint, the council can confirm and put somebody in there. So knowing that that's happened in the past, I would just encourage you that you're lucky you haven't experienced it now. We worked on the charter 2 times. I know Katie was on the charter the first time prior to us putting the provision in that the mayor had to appoint somebody within 30 days. That wasn't there. And we went for several months. So we've made those different tweaks, but each and every time talked about How do you ensure nobody can force you to come? It's just the fact that if you're going to represent the people, you have to be here to vote. And being here to vote means you need to come to those 2 meetings that the city structures and all that. So I would encourage you, having been embarrassed so many times from residents that why can't the council do anything about it? At least you have the same answer. We can't remove them. However, they're not being compensated when they're not attending the vote and represent the residents in that ward. So, and I understand it's not the same as the mayor. You have a mayor pro tem. The mayor pro tem can't vote, but the mayor only has to vote if it's a split tie, and the mayor pro tem can't do that. But your residents in your wards are expecting 2 votes. May wash each other out, but they're expecting 2 votes in each ward. When somebody doesn't come to the meeting, they don't vote, they're not being represented. So it's not about the money, it's about the fact of representing the residents. So I'd encourage you to really, if this would have come through a committee, I would have come to the committee and tried to do the homework and show you who some of these people were. Who just didn't want to serve, but they also wouldn't resign. They had no incentive to stay. It was never about the money. It was just not representing the people. And you feel kind of helpless as a council of 16 when you have people not coming to meetings to avoid a bad vote or to avoid a controversial vote or to do it. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is from Dennis Rubis wishing to comment about Wildwood Days.
I'm Dennis Rubis, and I'm in Ward 8. And I just wanted to thank the city and everybody involved in this past Saturday, Wildwood Day. It was a beautiful day. It was very well done. And I think especially it's a great day for the kids. So congratulations to whoever put this together and who got this thing through. So thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Next speaker card. Travis, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that will conclude our public participation. I want to thank our 2 presenters who came before us this evening to make their comments. Next, under mayor announcements, Mr. Foster, and if you would like, your family, would you please join me down in front here? All right, so the young man, we're at. Whereas William first joined the Boy Scouts, first grade, joined back. Whereas he then joined the Boy Scout troop 70. Early on, demonstrated the importance of helping his fellow scouts by serving as den chief to his former past, 304. Whereas he has served in numerous scouting leadership roles that include troop captain, patrol leader, librarian, most recently, patrol leader. Highest position in his group, which he was elected. Whereas William has earned numerous awards and recognitions, including the prestigious Dr. Lewis Walter Alvarez Brotherhood, Arrow, Boy Scout American National. Whereas at the age of 14, he highest of, whereas he would not have attained such status without perseverance and dedication. Well, whereas William is the resident of the city of Wildwood, and whereas his type of leadership the city of Wildwood proud to recognize. Now, therefore, I, James R. Bullen, mayor of the city of Wildwood, have the city of Wildwood, do on this 27th day of September 2021, hereby recognize and congratulate William Foster, all of the people, specifically for attaining the rank of a Have anything you want to say? Congratulations again. Thank you so much. Keep it going. Thanks for the. Okay. Thank you again for honoring us with your attendance tonight. We appreciate it. No public hearings tonight, so we're moving into legislation, second readings. The first bill we have is 2633, and this concerns a city contractor agreement with Gamma Tree. And we have another item that I'm assuming under second readings will not be terribly controversial, Bill 2637, which relates to our making our fiscal year commencing on January 21, 2021 and ending on December 31, 2021. To expedite the order of business before the council, would there be any objection to considering these two for second reading in tandem together? Gamma Tree and fiscal year? No objection? All right. Bill 2633 and 2637 are before the council for final passage and concern all wards. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bills? Made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Roast. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read bills 2633 and 2637.
Bill 2633, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood, Missouri with Gamma Tree Experts LLC for the planting of new trees within the public right of way in residential neighborhoods, second reading.
Thank you. Rick, do you have any comments on to add on Bill 2633?
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing further from my perspective, but I'm certainly available for any questions.
Any questions for Rick on Bill 2633? All right, Mr. Cross, do you have anything to add relative to Bill 2637?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, I do not, but I am available for any questions.
Any questions for Steve on Bill 2637? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bills 2633 and 2637.
I didn't read 2637.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Took time.
Please read Bill 2637.
Bill 2637, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, revising the budget for the city of Wildwood, Missouri for the fiscal year commencing on January 1st, 2021 and ending on December 31st, 2021, second reading.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on either of these bills from any member of the council? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bills 2633 and 2637.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bills 2633 and 2637 have passed. Moving next to Bill 2634, it is before the council for final passage and it concerns Ward 8. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bill made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Garitano? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2634.
Bill 2634, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, approving a change in zoning from the NU non-urban residence district to the R3 10,000 square foot residence district for 16,977 square foot tract of land that is located on the west side of Lindy Lane, north of Manchester Road, second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Bench, do you have anything further relative to Bill 2634 that you'd like to mention?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, but if you or any of the city council members have questions or comments, I'd be glad to try to address them at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Joe regarding Bill 2634? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2634.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Okay, Bill 2634 is passed. We just handled Bill 2637. That takes us to Bill 2638. As you know, I proposed this at the last meeting, and I just want to add real quickly, I have the utmost of respect for Mr. Ed Marshall, who spoke during public participation on this. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that there is and is not and never will be a perfect formula for compensation of elected officials. It's just the nature of what it is that you're either going to be compensating someone that doesn't deserve it or not compensating someone who does. I would submit that if you look at the history of this council from its inception to date, with 16 of you, that in the vast majority of cases, there have been council members who done yeoman's work at this bench and otherwise, and had to miss a meeting because of a family illness or whatever, and didn't get compensated for it, and that was not just. Versus the few that may have abused the system in terms of getting paid for not being at a council meeting. And so I would argue that the better approach, and again, with all due respect to my colleague and friend, Mr. Marshall, the better approach is to err on the side of equity in compensating the vast majority of council members who do the right thing, come to the meetings and do much more than letting the few that may have not done such a great job be the tail that wags the dog in this. So those are my comments on it. I appreciate your consideration of it. And again, I appreciate his comments and viewpoint on the issue. And I'm happy to answer any comments or answer any questions or what have you, if you have any. So we will need, by the way, the city attorney reminded me, for technical reasons, we will need an amendment to this if you agree with the city attorney's additional language that he thought of that it would be good to include. And if he wants to explain that, he can. Do you want to mention anything about that?
Thank you, Mayor. And before you is a red line draft of the bill with a couple of minor revisions just to ensure interpretation that is compliant with the Missouri Constitution and the city charter.
Thank you. So the first thing we would need to do then is have if you want to proceed forward with this, is a motion to amend the bill to include that legal language, and then we would go to the main motion. Councilor Ottenberg. So we have a motion to amend the bill as presented by the city attorney. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Clark. So we'll debate the amendment first, and then we'll go back to the main motion, whether it's amended or not. Is there any discussion on the amendment? See no discussion on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so now we're back to the bill, Bill 2638 as amended. Any discussion on the bill, questions or motions? Councilor Galani. It would be a motion to have a second reading of the bill. Yeah. Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Made by Councilmember Hopper. Any discussion on that motion? See no discussion. Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2638 as amended.
Bill 2638A, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending section 110.110 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood relating to the compensation of council members.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the bill? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, City Clerk Eldridge, would you please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2638?
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
No.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano. Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Abstain.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Abstain.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Okay, so the bill passes. Moving next to first readings. The first one is Bill 2639. It's before the Council on Concerns Ward 4. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2639.
Bill 2639, an ordinance of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, amending Chapter 390 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood, Missouri by enacting a new section 320.050, establishing a special enforcement area, amending Chapter 390, Traffic Schedule 2, speed limits of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood by establishing special enforcement area on Thunderhead Canyon Drive within the city and authorizing and directing the city traffic engineer to erect appropriate signage providing notice of such special enforcement area. First reading.
Thank you. I know we, obviously, as everyone else does, we discussed this in the work session. Rick, do you have anything further you'd like to mention relative to Bill 2639?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll take any questions if there are any from the council at this time.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Rick? Councilmember Farmer?
Yeah, hey, Rick, you guys may have mentioned this earlier, but I know when we talked about, or when you guys talked about this public safety, we were trying to get this changed over here relatively quickly. Do you need a second reading to do that, or are we okay to wait till the next meeting?
Certainly, if the council desires to move forward with this more quickly, the department would not be opposed to that. We have, I believe, 6 of the 7 signs ready in hand to install, so we can get most of the signs up in rather short order. I believe we have one that's still outstanding to be delivered, so I think we could probably get it done.
Can I make that motion?
You sure can. We have a motion for second reading made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. As you know, this will be a 2/3 supermajority vote because we're doing 2 readings in the same evening at the same meeting. So we'll try a voice vote, see where that goes, and take it from there. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we have the 2/3 supermajority. Ms. Eldridge, would you please read Bill 2639 a second time?
Bill 2639, an ordinance of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, amending Chapter 390 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood, Missouri by enacting a new Section 320.050, establishing a special enforcement area, amending Chapter 390, Traffic Schedule 2, speed limits of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood by establishing special enforcement area on Thunderhead Canyon Drive within the city, and authorizing and directing the city traffic engineer to erect appropriate signage, providing notice of such special enforcement area. Second reading.
Thank you. Any further discussion by the council? Any questions? Councilmember Dodwell.
I just wanted to make note of the fact that on the agenda online, this particular bill is up in the second reading and needs to be moved back down to new business.
Okay. We will check on that and make changes as needed.
I reloaded it 3 times just to make sure.
Okay. We appreciate you doing that. All right, and for pointing that out. Okay, seeing no further discussion, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll of the council for final passage of Bill 2639.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Bill 2639 has passed and is in effect. Moving next to Bill 2640, it's before the council also concerning Ward 4 for first reading. Is there a motion for a first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2640.
Bill 2640, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending chapter 390, traffic schedule for turning and directional movement restrictions of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood by establishing turning and directional movement restrictions at the intersection of West Glen Farms Drive and Truman Road within the city, and authorizing and directing the city traffic engineer to erect appropriate signage reflecting such turning and directional movement restrictions. First reading.
Okay, thank you. Rick, do you have anything further you want to mention relative to this? This bill we also discussed in the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I have nothing additional, but again, available for any questions from the council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any member of the council? Okay, then it will be on the council's agenda for its next meeting. Turning next to Bill 2641. Bill 2641 concerns consolidation of 2 lots in Ward 6. I also call the council's attention to the next bill 2642 that concerns the minor subdivision plat of 2 lots being divided into 3 lots. And the next bill, Bill 2643, that concerns the granting of an easement of 300 feet to Ameren by the city. And I would submit that given how these things usually go, these 3 could also be handled in tandem for first readings. If there's any objection, we can do each of them one at a time. Any objection to doing these 3 in tandem? In mass. Okay, seeing none. Bill 2641, Bill 2642, and Bill 2643 are before the council for first reading, and they concern Ward 6 in the case of Bill 2641, and Ward 1 in the case of Bills 2642 and 2643. Is there a motion for the first reading of the 3 bills? Made by Councilmember Jaxi and seconded by Councilmember Brost. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, would you please read the 3 bills?
Bill 2641, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the consolidation of 2 legal lots of record to create a new single parcel of ground that will be 7.42 acres in area and being so described as lots 48 and 55 of Fox Creek Valley Plat 4, Plat Book 111, page 61, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, and more specifically located at the terminus of Vixen Circle, north of Vixen Drive, to be known as 4605 and 4610 Vixen Circle Consolidation Plat, first reading. Bill 2642, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a minor subdivision plat consisting of 2 existing lots of record, which will be divided into a total of 3 parcels of ground, which are adjusted parcel 3 of the Schneider Tracks Boundary Adjustment Plat in northwest quarter of Section 2, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, and part of the northeast quarter of Section 3, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, and more specifically located on the northwest corner of State Route 100 and Pond Road, to be hereafter known as the Schneider's Wildwood Subdivision. First reading. Bill 2643, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute the attached deed exhibit and other documentation which thereby will grant a 300 square foot easement onto a public property to the Union Electric Company doing business as Ameren, Missouri, which is located at the southwest corner of State Route 109 and Pond Grover Parkway, to accommodate a guide wire installed to complete certain utility relocations that were part of a nearby street improvement project, State Route 109, first reading.
Thank you. So taking these one at a time, Mr. Bennett, first on Bill 2641, do you have any information you'd like to mention to the council relative to the consolidation of the two lots in Ward 6.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And with the assistance of Mr. Newberry, the petitioner has his dwelling on the lot that's identified on the screen to the right. They purchased, the lot to the left, which has some topographic constraints associated with it. And for the most part are protecting themselves from a future home site that may not necessarily be the best location for a new home. In terms of the next item, Mr. Newberry. As mentioned in the title of the bill, there are two legal lots of record that exist. The property owner would like to subdivide those two legal lots of record into 3 parcels of ground. As you can see, the sizes are substantial. The only item we would note is lot 2 is a flag lot, and that flag parallels, so to speak, Route 100. The intent to accommodate that is to avoid another creek crossing to the east or toward Pond Road. And the last item relates to an easement that was presented to City Council at the August 23rd, 2021 work session. And again, it is 300 square feet in size and has no impact on any of the existing improvements on the property. And with that, if there are any questions regarding the 3 items, the department would be glad to try and answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to start with, any questions on Bill 2641, the consolidation of 2 lots in Ward 6? Okay, seeing none, any questions on Bill 2642, moving the 2 lots into 3 lots in Ward 1? And last, Bill 2643, the granting of the 300 square foot easement. Bill 2643, any questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, Joe, I have a question. Are any of these in order for a second reading? I mean, is there anything going on with the lot owners in particularly? I'm talking about primarily Bill 2641 and 2642, or can they wait till the next council meeting?
I believe they can wait. Mr. Mayor, the first item, the 2 lot, the consolidation, the property owners already own both of them, so it's not going to put anything at risk. And the other, again, I would just probably want to wait 2 weeks just because of the flag lot configuration, making sure everyone understands that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That takes us to resolutions. We have 2 resolutions, both relating to MoDOT applications. The first is resolution 2021-22. It concerns wards 1 and 6. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2021-22? Made by Councilmember Brost, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Ms. Eldridge, please read the resolution.
Resolution 2021-22, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing submission of an application to the Missouri Department of Transportation, MoDOT, for state funding of a capital project to design and construct restricted crossing U-turn intersections, J-turns, on State Route 100 at Pond Road and at State Route T, St. Albans Road, under the MoDOT Cost Share Program.
Thank you. Rick, do you have anything further you want to mention? I know we discussed this in work session. Anything further you want to mention relative to Bill 2021-22?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't believe there's anything further the department would like to mention at this time, but as usual, I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Rick? Seeing none, we have a motion to adopt resolution 2021-22, which has been seconded. All in favor of the motion to adopt the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, resolution 2021-22 is adopted. Moving next to resolution 2021-23. It's also concerning wards 1 and 6. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2021-23 made by Councilmember Clark and seconded by Councilmember Jaxie? Ms. Eldridge, please read the resolution.
Resolution 2021-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing submission of an application to the Missouri Department of Transportation, MoDOT, for state funding of a capital project to design and construct left turn lanes at the intersections of State Route 100 with Booness Lane, Woodland Meadows Drive, Hinkin Road, and Hawks Rest Road / Windy Hollow Lane under the MoDOT cost share program.
Thank you. Rick, do you have anything further to add to this, or you want to mention relative to this resolution that we also discussed in work session?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I do not, but I'm available for any questions from the council.
Any questions from the council relative to the resolution or comments? Councilmember Dodwell.
I would just ask that for the public's information that we put a overhead drawing or some kind of diagram of where these intersections are so that the entire city knows where we're talking about doing these things. I know residents out in this particular area are probably anxious for it to occur, but I think we need to let the rest of our residents know.
It's a very good idea. So let's, without objection, let's start with the bill we have at hand, the resolution 2021-23, and then we'll go back to 2021-22.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, thank you, Councilor Dodwell. Or actually, you have them both on the same map, is that
Well,
correct? Rick, do you want to
Yeah,
describe where they are?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, this was a graphic that was provided, and I apologize. Well, we can certainly do better. This was provided through the MoDOT traffic study. In my opinion, it's not very high quality, and we can certainly come up with something of a better nature. But the intent here was to show the J-turn locations near Pond Road and also near St. Albans Road Route T. So circled in red are the indication of the U-turn movement that would be constructed. One on either side of Route T and just the one essentially to the west of Pond Road. I didn't provide any information on the specific location of the 4 left turn lanes, but I'm sure we could put a better graphic together and provide that either to council and or the public through our website or however you wish in the future.
I think that's good for now. Thank you. Okay. So we have yet to vote on resolution 2021-23, correct? Okay. Any further discussion or comments on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to adopt resolution 2021-23, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the resolution passes. That takes us to the consent agenda. We have 3 things. The first is the approval of expenditures that have been presented. The second are 2 appointments. The first is the reappointment of Bob Morris from Ward 7 to our Board of Adjustment, and the new appointment of Paul Delante from Ward 2 to fill a vacant spot on the Watershed Erosion Task Force. A motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented will take care of all 3 of these in mass. If any member of the council wishes to separate them, we can take them one by one. Anyone want to have make a question or have discussion or make a motion? Councilor Bartoni. Approve them
as a
the
consent.
consent agenda as presented, seconded by Councilmember Hopper. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the consent agenda as presented is adopted. That takes us to miscellaneous, and I'm sure all of you share what I'm getting ready to say about the great event that we had this last weekend. And we also had one of our residents, as you know, who spoke to this during public participation. It really was just terrific. I think it was our best attended ever in terms of all facets of it, the parade and everything that followed. And just as an FYI, given not only the work that the Wildwood Celebration Commission has put forth for this particular event, but if for those of you who've been around, if you think about where this event was many years ago and where it is today, they've done just an incredible job from everything relating to incorporating the art part of it, to moving the time that residents like better because it's a little cooler, to developing a logo that can be used and we don't have to keep paying for new logos every year, and so forth. So in light of that, at our next council meeting, I'm going to be doing a proclamation of thanks for each member of this commission. So just a heads up on that. Councilmember Dodwell.
I would like to pass along an extreme and very heartfelt thank you to the city staff who performed so many duties during this whole affair. And hopefully, as we continue to work through this particular event, we can begin next year maybe to seek out additional city volunteers who would like to be able to help. I know many of them are helping in their own individual booths, et cetera. But I just, as Travis said earlier to me, he says, "Oh, we've got this down pat now. We can do it in seconds." And I'm like, yeah, but it'd be nice to have a little bit of extra help. But thanks all the city staff and their members for all of their hard work. That's quite the event, and all of our residents really enjoyed it. So good job, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilor Garetano.
Yeah, I would echo what Katie just said as well, that the staff and the commission members, they did a fantastic job planning, and having sat through those meetings of the Wildwood Celebration Commission, they debated everything from the timing to the weather, you name it. So I know there were a lot of folks that were praying for good weather, and those prayers were answered. So on that, and I also want to commend the spirit of the city council and the mayor with the golf cart decorating. You all truly stepped it up this year, and I was impressed. I mean, you know, whether it was Ward 2, Ward 6, or Ward 5 and Ward 3, I mean, either way you add it up, it always adds up to 8. So 8 is great. But anyway, I really have to say it was so much fun to see the camaraderie and the, you know, challenging of each other to decorate the golf carts, and everyone on this dais here did a fantastic job.
Councilor Rajaxi.
So of course, I'd love to echo everything that's been said, but I'd also want to add one more thing, and that's to Captain Mundell and his team. Sometimes we forget, you know, those folks that keep us all safe while we're out there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember Clark.
And in addition to all that's already been said, is the that I did get word back from some of the people in the audience that were deaf or hard of hearing, and they very much appreciated the interpreting that was going on. It was excellent. And you never know who is deaf in the audience, so you can't know how much it's helping, but it did.
Thank you. All right. Yes, one of our best. Oh, Councilmember Edens.
Yes, I just to quickly echo what everybody else said. I mean, you guys know I don't enjoy decorating golf carts at all. But I certainly had a blast this weekend. But what I also really wanted to say is,
You could tell.
as our council as our council members, we had a sweatshop in the Edens household for decoration. So special thanks to Ward 2 dad and mom who helped out. Bless their hearts. So as the council knows, the Missouri Municipal League annual conference is going on right now, but the public may not know that. And I just wanted to give a very, very special shout out to my fellow council member, Joe Garetano, who will be elected officially as the Municipal League president, which is a very big deal. I mean, think about St. Louis County having 98 municipalities. Now, add the rest of the municipalities in the state and realize that we are in the position of having the president office, which is extraordinary. And currently he's serving as vice president. So I was at the conference today, and I got to hang out with Councilmember Ottenberg and came back with some good information. And then tonight I've been trying to finish up a FEMA class, so that's what I've been home doing, which leads me into a transition and a question. Which is simply, do we require any FEMA certifications for our city marshal?
I don't think so.
Okay, maybe we can kind of touch base on that, since they have some role in coordinating agencies, and I don't have a role in that yet. I'm gaining certification in that, so let's.
So we have a very comprehensive emergency procedures plan. If you haven't seen that before,
yeah, I have. Yep, there's just additional, classes and certifications. So maybe that's something that we can talk about, in admin in the future or something like that. Kind of adding that in there. Cool
All
beans.
right.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilmember Hopper, seconded by Councilmember Farmer, non-debatable. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next meeting.